We're going to start with the definition of depression according to WHO, the World Health Organization. It says that depression is a common illness worldwide with more than 300 million people affected. Depression is different from usual mood fluctuations and short-lived emotional responses to challenges in everyday life, especially when long-lasting and with moderate or severe intensity. Depression can become a serious health condition. It can cause the affected person to suffer greatly and function poorly at work, at school, and in the family. As its worst, depression can lead to suicide. Close to 800,000 people die due to suicide every year, and suicide is the second leading cause of death in 15 to 19-year-olds. We saw a video on suicide a while ago, too. I don't know if you remember. It was in a video class. And something I want to mention before we continue is that depression, a few years ago, I guess maybe 10 or 20 years ago, people considered other people who suffered from depression lazy, right? Depression wasn't taken very seriously. It wasn't considered a disease. And thank God nowadays, other people know it's been more spread. And we know that depression is really a disease that should be treated mentally or in the body, physically and psychologically and spiritually. But it wasn't so. It's a very difficult disease. I don't know if you have already suffered from depression, but I guess only the ones who have suffered or who have had anybody in the family or a close member who have suffered from depression, they really know what it's all about, because there's still some stigma and but I hope it will change in the future, even more than it has already changed. Causes of depression can be hormonal, genetic predisposition, and obsession. So there might be changes in our hormones that can cause depression, or can I wouldn't say help, but can make a person more prone to having depression. There is also genetic predisposition. I was doing some research on that. Some doctors agree that is a thing, and some doctors disagree. I used to go to a psychiatrist in Brazil a few years ago, right after I got divorced, and she said that my family had a genetic predisposition to depression because my father has suffered from it, my mom has, I have, my two sisters have. So she says that there was something in our genes that made it more difficult for us to deal with difficult situations. I don't know if that's really true or not, but you will find that if you do some research. And also obsession. And when we look at depression, we will actually never know for sure the true cause of depression. I will read something to you that I got from, it's a book by Jonah DeAngelis. I don't remember which one it is now. I'm sorry. It says that we will not know for sure if the cause of depression lies in the spirit only or not. So we will never know for sure if the cause of a depression is an obsession or not. That's why it's important to treat everything. We treat the body in a holistic way. We are formed of a spiritual body and a physical one. So we have to treat both when we're dealing with depression. And Allan Kardec coined the expression the integral man when he was defining what is spirit, and what the body were, or what we were composed of. And he said that, well, we all know that we are made of the spirit, the perispirit, and the body. And the connection between us and the spirit is made through the perispirit. So the spirit and the perispirit connect or have a relationship, let's say, between one another. And the body and the perispirit also have a relationship between one another. The body suffers material influence, which it affects the spirit through the perispirit. And the perispirit suffers spiritual influence, which affects the spirit and the body. So my idea in bringing this to you is to show that we are all connected, right? Allan Kardec also says that no, I have already told you. In turns affect the body, everything is connected. And how does this influence take place? we have fluids in our body. I got some information that I'm also going to read to you. I might read to you from the Fluids and Passes. It's a book by Teresinha Oliveira. Teresinha Oliveira passed 2 years ago. Do you know? 2 years ago, I think, or more. And she was a great contributor to the spiritual doctrine. She worked in Campinas, São Paulo, in a spiritist center called Allan Kardec. And she wrote a series of books, and she went around the country giving lectures. And there's this book that talks about fluids and passes, the healing touch. And I thought it was important to bring you some information on fluids for us to understand. How do I go back? Now, page down, page up. No. Oh, maybe this is... Down? Yes, sorry. How this influence can happen, because it's all because of the fluids. Anyway, so we know that the spirit attracts fluids from the fluidic atmosphere of the world, forming with them a spiritual body, the perispirit. This fluidic body connects the spirit to the spirit plane where it lives. So the perispirit connects the spirit to the body, right? Okay. Then, when a spirit incarnates, the perispirit binds the body and the spirit together. The perispirit influences the molding of the physical body, and in our lifetime acts as an intermediary between body and spirit. I guess we all know that. Fluids are neutral. They acquire qualities depending on the environment where they develop. Spirits, incarnate or not, they act upon fluids through thought and will, and they do this both consciously and unconsciously. Since the perispirit is also fluidic in nature, it can absorb fluids easily, like a sponge soaking up a liquid. This is how a spirit assimilates external fluids. In the incarnate, these fluids will act upon the perispirit and the body. So we are actually like a sponge, right? We are always emanating fluids, and we're always receiving them. We receive and emanate fluids through thought and will. So the places we go to, or the thoughts that we have, the people that are around us, are always 100% of the time influencing us and we them. So that's how the change can happen, and that's how an obsession can take place as well. I was watching, just a sentence before I continue. In Genesis, Allan Kardec says that truly good spirits, whether incarnate or discarnate, have nothing to fear from the influence of evil ones. I decided to bring this up because I have been asked by other people that were willing to know more about Spiritism. When I told them that we are influenced by spirits all the time, then they asked, well, how can I... So I'm going to be scared. I'm never going to go do charity. Like we have Isabel who goes on the streets at East Hastings and she helps people who are there. So then it means that she's going to be influenced by the bad energy that's around there. And then, no, that's not true. You can, if you have good thoughts and goodwill, you will be kind of protecting yourself. So that's not going to happen. We shouldn't fear the influence of evil spirits. I was watching a lecture by Sergio Tiessin. He's from Rio de Janeiro. He was in Toronto, and he was talking about depression, and he works at a spiritist center in Rio, and he brought up 2 cases that were confirmed obsessions, and the names are different, just to protect the people, but I thought it was a good idea to bring the cases to you to show that depression can be caused by an obsession, but we as I said, we have to treat the body with antidepressants, and we have to visit psychiatrists or psychologists, and we have to treat the spirit. There was a case of this woman, Deborah. She was 44. She had 2 kids. She had an executive position in a company, so you could say that she was successful, right? And she just started developing symptoms of depression. She had insomnia. She had suicide ideation, which is the idea of suicide. She never actually attempted suicide, but she thought of it many times. And she looked for psychiatric treatment, and she was prescribed antidepressants. She took them for a few months, and there didn't seem to be enough improvement. So a friend of hers suggested going to a spiritist center, which is actually something common in Brazil when you're experiencing too much trouble, and some other people who are friends, they might say, oh, why don't you go and watch a lecture or have the healing touch? And so she did. And in the spiritist center, she was seen by a group of people, and it was suggested that she took some healing touches, that she went to the spiritist center every week for a few months. And she did, and she took passes, the healing touch, for a few months, and then separate another day in their mediumistic meetings. They can see the cases, they can treat the cases of the people that have been there, and they found out that there was actually a spirit in a fetal position close to her stomach, and this spirit was, at this life, it was an aborted child. She had aborted a child, but Jesus, I don't know what's on purpose, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't by accident. She wanted to abort the child, and the child was seeking revenge for the provoked abortion. So her symptoms, her depression symptoms, were actually caused by this spirit. So this spirit was helped within it took months, lots of mediumistic meetings and people talking to the spirit, and it was a male spirit. He was helped, and then she started feeling better and better and better and better. She continued her treatment with the antidepressants, but then she went back to her psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, well, I think we can just reduce the dosage, or we can actually stop them in the future, and she felt better. So, yeah, that's a case that we can see, for sure, her depression was caused by an obsessor. There is another case. It's Letitia, 21. She was a law student, and she had very, very, very strong headaches. She also saw a doctor, and there was investigation, like MRI and all, and they found nothing. She was prescribed powerful painkillers, and as she took them, she had good temporary results, but then the headaches would come back, and then come back, and come back, and come back, and back. And then, because of the headaches, she started suffering from depression. She didn't want to go, she didn't want to leave the house anymore. She dropped out of school. She just wanted to stay home. And then again, a friend suggested she went to the spiritist center, and she did, and they asked her to come and have the healing touch for a few weeks, and the same kind of treatment. And they found out there was a spirit kind of connected or closer to her head, giving her the headaches. And she had been a Nazi official at Auschwitz, and she tortured lots of people at that time. And this spirit, who had been doing that to her, he had actually been trying to find her for years and years, and because she's a woman now, right? And she's I don't know if she's had other lives before that, probably not. But when he found her, he wanted to make her suffer too, because he was one of the ones that she ended up killing, torturing in the past at war. And again, that person was given help, and the spirit, and she was as well, and she started feeling better and better and better and better, and then the headaches were gone after a few months of treatment. So, yeah. How can we, let me, before I continue, there might be other causes of depression, not only the three ones that I told you, obsession, genetic predisposition, and hormonal. There is the question 886 from the Spirit's book that asks, the fatality which seems to shape our material destinies is then a result of our free will. So whatever we are suffering here today, depression included, it might actually be a choice. It might actually be something, or we're just suffering the consequences of something that we have done before. It's not an obsession, or if it is, it's yourself with your own spirit, right? And in the answer, they say, you, yourself, have chosen your trial. The severer it is, the better you bear it, the higher you do raise yourself. Those who pass their lives in the selfish enjoyment of plenty and of human happiness are cowardly spirits who remain stationary. Thus, the number of those who are unfortunate is much greater in your world than of those who are fortunate, because spirits generally make choice of the trial that will be most useful to them. They see too clearly the futility of your grandeurs and your enjoyments. Besides, the most fortunate life is always more or less agitated, more or less troubled, if only by the absence of sorrow. I remember I read in a book, I won't remember the name of the book either, but it was a story of a guy who had committed suicide so many times in his life, like so many incarnations, that there was a certain incarnation that he was born without legs and without arms, because it was the only way they found for him not to commit suicide again. Otherwise, he would. So it's a blessing, right? When you look at a person without arms and legs, you're like, oh, but yeah, and it's something that he had provoked. So he might have been depressed in his life, but it wasn't an external cause. There is another question, which is 920, and it says, is it possible for man to enjoy perfect happiness upon earth? We have already seen these questions in the Spirit's book. And it says, no, for corporeal life has been appointed to him either as a trial or an expiation. But it depends upon himself to lighten the evils of his lot and to render it as happy as life can be upon the earth. So we are not going to be 100% happy, 100% of the time happy in this earth, unfortunately. But we can try, and we can do our best. It's also very difficult when you see somebody who suffers from depression and you try to help them, but you tell them to, like, you should get out of bed. They can't get out of bed. They're not spending the whole day in bed because they want to or because they're lazy or, we have to help them seek treatment, trying to tell them that you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't think this way, or it's like, let's go see a psychiatrist, let's go see a psychologist, let's go to the Spiritist Center and watch a lecture, and but yeah, it's really hard. How can we do that? How can we prevent depression then? Something we talk a lot about every day: inner transformation and thought education. Know yourself. In the same book I was telling you about, Terezinha Oliveira, she says that we should raise our thoughts. We should seek good surroundings. When she was talking about the fluids, how not to be influenced by bad fluids. So raise our thoughts, seek good surroundings. Cultivation of the virtues: solidarity, charity, altruism, forgiveness, prayer, and bond with spiritual life mentors, and work too. She also says in the book that we should not fear bad fluidic influences, seeing that our own perispirit is a fluidic source. By purifying and strengthening its own fluids with good thoughts and feelings, we will be turning it into a protective shield against any evil influence. So we can protect ourselves. Depression may also be caused by feelings of guilt from past lives. There is in here, as I told you before, no influence of another spirit but your own. And as I have already said before, Earth is a place of trial and expiation. So we are being given another chance to succeed. And it depends on us how we take that chance. And we're not depressed, we're just really sad, and we start bringing our thoughts down, and we start thinking that life is bad, or something really bad happens in our life, and we have to try to get out of that cycle. Of course, we all get sad, and sadness is a feeling that is part of life, right? But we have to be careful not to let that take over that can be the beginning of a depressive period, and they actually say that in the end if you want to continue. And I had a sentence I closed my presentation and I had a sentence in the end, but I'm not going to open it again because it's going to take forever. And so I'll just say thank you. We can we can talk now, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you.